Our guest today is the Prime Minister of Grenada, the Honourable Dickon Mitchell. And welcome, Mr. Prime Minister. Good morning. How are you?
Thank you very much for having me, and good morning. I am doing fine.
Right, right. Well, it's a pleasure indeed communicating with you, especially in the aftermath of Hurricane Beryl. You know, our audience is eager to respond to the needs of our Caribbean people. You know,
Yes.
and it was indeed significant to see the steps made by Grenada and other countries. Um, Give us a sense of the post-impact you see of Beryl on Grenada, on your country.
All right. Well, thank you very much for having me. And I'll start perhaps just in terms of the physical impact.
Yes, yeah, we'll start with physical and then maybe go into economical.
Yes. So the Grenada, as you know, is made up of three island chains: Grenada, CARICOM, and PT Martinique. The islands of CARICOM and PT Martinique suffered extensive physical damage, and the northern part of Grenada, mostly the parish of St. Patrick, and to a lesser extent, St. Andrew, St. Mark, and St. John, also suffered some major physical damage as well. The main areas impacted were housing. In the case of CARICOM and PT Martinique, 70 to 80% of housing either suffered, in some cases, major structural damage, or
Yes,
in cases severe or total damage. So we've got a major housing challenge that has arisen as a result, both in CARICOM and PT Martinique, and to a lesser extent in St. Patrick. But there was quite significant damage in St. Patrick as well.
right.
A lot of infrastructure damage. So in the case of CARICOM, PT Martinique, the power grid almost was completely destroyed. That's the transmission and distribution system, the overhead lines, the poles.
Right.
The water systems also suffered damage because of the storm surge. Both CARICOM and PT Martinique rely on desalination plants. So the lines and so on were impacted as a
Yes.
result of the storm. Telecommunications went down as well. In the case of CARICOM and PT Martinique, there was a point when we had virtually no communication systems working at all. The agricultural sector has been significantly damaged. In the case of CARICOM and PT Martinique, almost complete destruction of
Wow.
vegetation, forestry, and crucially as well, the mangroves. There's been extensive damage to the coastline and the mangroves in CARICOM and PT Martinique.
Right.
Agriculture is taking a major hit in Grenada as well, because the northern part of the island is the agriculture belt. So
Yes.
we've had, in terms of our long-term agricultural products, cocoa, nutmeg, things like breadfruit, soursop,
Yeah.
coconuts, mangoes. We've had significant damage, 70-80% in some cases in that area. Short crops were also severely impacted. Or aqua products, so the sea moss farmers, etc.,
Yeah.
the beekeepers, the people in honey production were also significantly impacted. And the fishing sector was also significantly impacted, particularly in CARICOM and PT Martinique, which relies heavily on fishing. So hundreds of boats were damaged, or in some instances completely destroyed. The marinas, the jetties were also significantly impacted.
Right.
And then in terms of government physical infrastructure, you have road damage, bridges as a result of either rainfall or storm surges. You've got major government buildings in CARICOM and PT Martinique, the police station, the magistrates court, the central administrative office for the
Wow.
government, the port. So we're talking extensive
Yes.
and widespread devastation. And then on business, CARICOM PT Martinique is heavily dependent on tourism.
Yes.
So you would have had a lot of the guest houses, some of the small hotels would have completely lost their roofs. Schools, health centers, or schools,
Yeah. Yeah.
or main shelters, both in Grenada and in CARICOM and PT Martinique. And some of the schools were impacted as well. Some of them roof damage, sometimes the blocks of the school. There was one school in particular, the Dover Government School, that was
Yes.
completely demolished
Yes.
as a result of a 40-foot or 20-foot container hitting from flying debris, hitting the school and demolishing it. So the damage, the physical damage has been widespread and pretty extensive.
Right, right. So I would imagine all of this has impacted income generation and other on the other production side of things.
Absolutely. So to some extent, you could almost say in the case of CARICOM Petit Martinique, it has left us with virtually no economy. So obviously, all of the tourism-related businesses have no business. And you obviously have people who are unemployed as a result of that. In the case of agriculture, obviously the farmers have no income as a result of the destruction of their crops. So that has definitely impacted people's livelihoods.
Right.
Obviously, in the case of persons who work in providing government services, whether they're teachers, healthcare professionals, and so on,
Yeah.
it certainly has interrupted the provision of the services that they would normally provide. So yes, it has had a major economic impact on persons as well.
Right. Well, I know disaster mitigation and disaster recovery comes to mind in your plans and initiatives. Do you believe any measures could have been taken in the impact of the storm and so minimized the consequences of this storm?
Well, I would say yes, and I'm speaking here for things that we can control. I certainly think the need to ensure that a lot more thought and enforcement is gone into the type of construction, particularly of housing,
Yeah,
homes.
right.
We have to absolutely ensure that our citizens understand the need to make sure that, a house is generally a lifelong investment. It's usually a once in a lifetime investment. And we need to make sure that our citizens understand, our contractors, our homeowners, builders understand the need to ensure that we have to build houses that can withstand category 4, category 5 storms. So that absolutely is critical. So we have to look at our building techniques.
Yes.
We have to revisit it. We have to make sure that the building codes are enforced. It's not a question where we don't have the building codes or we don't know what needs to be done, but we have to make sure that they're enforced. We also have to look at changing some of our practices, perhaps looking at things like more concrete roofs,
Right.
to make sure that they can withstand, ensuring that the hurricane straps are done, ensuring that the actual design of the homes are more conducive to minimizing the wind in particular, lifting the roofs off, because that's where a lot of the major damage occurred.
Yeah.
When it comes to things like our electricity and communication systems, we are going to have to look at whether we put some of these things on the ground to minimize the damage from overhead falling debris. We also have to make sure that our trees, in the case of Grenada in particular, in the north of the island, the hurricane transmission and the electricity transmission and distribution system,
Right.
it was damaged by the fact that the large trees fell on them. So it either means we have to find ways to ensure that the poles are planted with a certain distance away from these trees, or that we spend a lot of time, particularly in the hurricane season, making sure that we can trim and minimize the risk of the trees falling on the power lines or on the water lines. So that is something we can look at. And then financially, while it may not be mitigation in terms of the risk of the physical damage, but the financial consequences of the damage. The use of insurance instruments is something that we have to ensure that we encourage our citizens to use a lot more, particularly again for housing, because we have to ensure that persons can have built-in resilience to any loss or damage that they may suffer by being able to pay for the financial instruments that can help you with things like insuring your boat, if you're a fisherman, or insuring your loss of income if you're a business person, or insuring a home for persons who have residences. So certainly those are things we can do.
Right. So just like you have a security system, the RSS, do you think the Caribbean has in place a mechanism to cope with disaster mitigation?
Yes, well, we have and in a sense, the RSS is part of it. We have CDEMA, which is the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, which is really our umbrella agency that has really done yeoman's work in Grenada, St. Vincent, and the Grenadines. It's a regional coordinating response agency, both in terms of disaster preparedness and disaster response. And I can certainly go on record and indicate that Ms. Riley and her team at CDEMA have done a tremendous job in supporting Grenada, St. Vincent, and the Grenadines, and they're still continuing to do so. The regional security system is actually part of that response mechanism. So we're quite happy to have them in Grenada. CDEMA does a whole range of things. In addition to providing technical assistance to us, they coordinate oftentimes a lot of the disaster responses and disaster assistance that we get from international donor agencies, because oftentimes it's given to CDEMA and not an individual bilateral government. They provide human resources to support a lot of the responses and the preparation that takes place. They assist us with damage assessment and rapid needs assessment.
Right.
So we can actually go to the international and regional community for help. So I would certainly say without CDEMA, Grenada, and I dare say the entire Caribbean would be significantly weakened in its ability to prepare and respond to disasters. So they do play a significant role.
Right. So I would suggest that you have a roster of individuals in the region who can assist you in development or direction of such a path. Do you have access to them?
Well, certainly through CDEMA we do, and then through other donor agencies as well we do. But in our case, we have been hit by 3 hurricanes in 20 years. In 2004, we were hit by Hurricane Ivan, 2005 by Hurricane Emily, and now we're hit by Hurricane Beryl. So to some extent, we also have some, if I may say, homegrown experts who have obviously gone through the challenges of dealing with disaster preparedness and disaster response.
Right.
Yes, we also have the opportunity to rely on regional experts for assistance.
Yeah. I know you're a part of the international agencies like the OAS and so on. Do you participate in any dialogue for climate change in the global arena?
Yes, we do, very much so. In fact, just last week, I was part of a meeting convened by the Secretary General of the Organization of American States to actually talk about disaster mitigation, disaster preparedness, and how we can leverage the OAS to better address those issues and to use it as a platform to bring more attention and more resources to the challenges that we face as a result of climate change. But we also take part in all of the larger international conferences, the COPs, and so on, which seeks to address the issue of climate change. Many of the SIDS, small island developing states, of which Grenada is one, actively pursuing a number of measures to address climate justice, from advocacy, from seeking legal opinions from the ICJ. So there's a lot that we are doing. Grenada is hosting a Sargassum conference in October in Grenada. Sargassum is one of the challenges we face as a result of the warming of the oceans and pesticides and all of these things getting into the oceans. That is having a significant impact on tourism, on again our aqua production industry in terms of sea moss and those sort of things. So there's a lot that we are doing both bilaterally and within the regional and international space.
Right. Well, it seems there's a lot on the plate that you have to go,
Yes.
How are you functioning as head of CARICOM right now?
Well, I've started in June. Obviously, Hurricane Beryl interrupted that a little. We were scheduled to have a initial CARICOM conference in Grenada before the same week of Beryl. Luckily, Grenada was spared some of the damage and destruction. So I was happy to host my colleagues here at the end of July. And I want to take the opportunity again to thank them, because CARICOM has really been a tremendous pillar of support and solidarity and strength for Grenada and the other islands impacted by Hurricane Beryl. So I'm functioning well. There are a number of issues from a regional perspective that CARICOM has to continue to lead and champion on, including the situation in Haiti and making sure that we continue to support them and continue to bring international attention to Haiti. We a number of initiatives that we have to continue working on within CARICOM, including the Caribbean, the CSME, regional maritime and air transportation, and in my case, as lead in a quasi cabinet of CARICOM for ICT. Digitalization is a major platform for me, and ensuring that we can use ICT, artificial intelligence, digitalization to drive economic growth, to drive productivity, and to make sure that our citizens don't get left behind in this fourth industrial revolution. So those are some of the key areas we are looking at within CARICOM.
Right. Describe the reaction of your diaspora. Is it a lucrative diaspora that supports the country? Are you satisfied with the reaction of your diaspora and the Caribbean for that matter?
Yes, to both questions. The diaspora has been very, very supportive of not just the government, but I think citizens of Grenada in general, both in good and in bad times. So certainly the response of the diaspora to Hurricane Beryl has been tremendous and overwhelming. A lot of people have raised funds, have gathered supplies, relief supplies, and are sending it back home.
Yeah.
Many family members have come back
Yeah.
to check on their loved ones, to support them, to see how they can help. In some instances, they're taking them up to take a break. Grenada has a carnival which just concluded. You had a large
Right.
number of people in the diaspora coming back and supporting culturally, socially, and of course economically as well. And we've had many members of the diaspora also offering to lend us their expertise or support us by volunteering in aspects, whether it's in the medical field, in the disaster recovery field. So no, I'm quite happy and proud of the diaspora. They have been supportive throughout this process.
Right, right, right. Well, I've always been interested in Grenada. I've done research there. I've come there to do research on the Pan. I've written a book called Voices of Pan Pioneers of Trinidad and Tobago. And in initiating it, I did come to Grenada to find the guys who would beat Pan in the early days, So it's interesting to see such a collection of content pertaining our history, And
Thank you.
I applaud you as a young man. It's nice seeing a young prime minister,
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Anything you'd like to add to leave us with?
No, I just want to, I think it's been Grenada is celebrating its 50th anniversary of independence. So we've had, in a sense, a hell of a year because we've had a pretty fantastic independence celebration, and then we faced some significant challenges. Initially, a severe drought in the first half of the island, and then Hurricane Beryl. But we have, withstand challenges in the past. I think we have to ensure that we build the resilience into continuing to do so. So to my citizens, obviously, it's continuing to work with them and continue to encourage them and give those who are impacted hope that will come out of this better and stronger. And to the region, to continue thanking them for the support and the encouragement that they've rendered to Grenada thus far. And we continue looking forward to working on Caribbean solidarity and Caribbean unity, because I think these storms show more than ever that, or regional responses or coordinated regional institutions are the ones that really help us to navigate those storms. So it's important for us regionally to not sometimes give up on ourselves.
Yes.
Give up on our integration movement simply because we are perhaps not making progress as quickly as we want. But I can tell you my own experience with Hurricane Beryl shows overwhelmingly that it's the CARICOM institutions, it's the CARICOM solidarity from a security, from a health perspective, from the provision of material goods support that really rallies behind a neighbor when we're in need. So that's critical for us to continue recognizing and appreciating that.
Yeah. One question before we leave. CARICOM, do you see it as a successful entity?
Yes, there's no question of that. It has shortcomings, but absolutely. I think CARICOM is the oldest integration movement in the developing world. There are other countries that are asking to join a CARICOM. So, for example, Curacao became the latest associate member in Grenada at the 47th Heads of Conference meeting. There are other countries within the region that are non-English speaking, and I think that is critical to recognize that we also have non-English speaking members who are now seeking to become associate members, ultimately full members. And I think they would not be doing so if they did not view CARICOM as a successful organization and the institution to be part of. So for me, absolutely, CARICOM is a success.
Thank you very much, Mr. Prime Minister, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Same to you.
Okay.
Thanks.
I've been speaking with the Prime Minister of Grenada, the Honourable Dickon Mitchell.